everyone, and welcome to Bordertown Strange. I'm Pam.
And I'm Jess.
And
I'm going to make him say it.
Enzo, and he's
Mark.
Good.
I'm actually crazy, but I mean,
too funny.
We're too lazy to introduce y'all. You got to do it yourselves.
we can do that.
Well, tonight we're going to bring you along for the ride as we delve into the history and the interesting stories that go along with Kansas UFOs and the 37th parallel, and all the fun that goes along with that. So we kind of ended the last show with the majority of Kansas UFOs. So we do have some information from our trip to Geneseo, and Enzo was along with us too. So we're lobbing this one to Enzo tonight. We have some slides to go along with it, but just kind of wanted to talk about it and about the Kansas UFO Day that's coming up.
Just a minute. Hold on there, doggy. We got to do a little housekeeping first before we start.
All righty.
We got to do a little bit of housekeeping. So everybody that's on Facebook right now, please just take a second to like and share. Tell your friends about us. For everybody that's hanging out on YouTube tonight, give us a thumbs up, subscribe, and hit that bell. It'll let you know when we're going live again. And it'll help promote us just a little bit more, get our numbers up so we can bring you even more content. We also encourage everyone to hop on the chats and join in the fun and all the conversation, especially for notebooks at the end. It's a fun game to play, and everybody gets to join in. You get to be a part of the show. We also invite everyone to send us your show ideas and any personal stories you have, videos, anything like that. We'll read them. We'll show them on air. And if we like you enough, we might let you come on and hang out with us just a little bit. Anyway, so I believe that's all the housekeeping we have. So, Mr. Enzo, you may continue.
Well, I guess we'll just jump straight into Geneseo.
No, we're just going to throw it right to you there, huh?
Yeah.
Well, we can start. So Geneseo is in Kansas. It's a teeny tiny little town, and this place has become a little mecca for UFO lovers. And our team, in fact, all four of us right here, I believe, are the ones that are going to be speaking this year. I believe it's on July 6th. It's a Saturday. All sorts of fun stuff's going to be happening. We're going to be talking about the 37th parallel. We're going to be doing some Q&A sessions. We're going to do some panels. It's going to be a hoot and a half. So we're going to let Enzo tell you a little bit about the history of this place and why it's the UFO capital of Kansas.
Well,
ta-da!
As here we can see in our picture, the Geneseo Museum, which it's actually the town's museum, which covers the whole from the founding of the town as original, in the original territory days, the late 1800s, where it was they decided to put a town there because they had a natural water source and the train was going to be running by there. So basically, it was a train stop for refilling water and all that, which of course brings other things along with it to help a town grow and all that. And they have all of these ancient artifacts of the town itself. So if you're not familiar with rural small town life, especially back in the old days, it's an amazing walk through this whole house to see little artifacts and stuff in there that they have, like every yearbook from their little town. The original school graduating class was like 1911 or something like that, and it was graduating class of 2, something like that. But all the way up to current day, and it's just I was fascinated by that. It had like those little flip kind of folder things like you used to see at the store in the mall with all the posters on it.
Really neat. They had some really cool stuff.
Yeah,
they had like the original AT&T switchboard. Was there this giant wooden coffin looking monstrosity, the kind where you literally had to take the wire and unplug it from here and plug it into there to connect the two
places for different phones.
Pretty cool stuff. just pictures of all over the town and how it grew up and all that. And one of the reasons that it's in this particular house is back in the 50s and 60s. Dr. Elmer Jansen, Janzen, kind of like the town doctor, kind of a Mayberry feel, kind of an idea, who was kind of head of the community, sort of. And this is actually one of his old houses that they turned into the town museum. The other thing about old Doc Jansen is he was a avid UFO guy. He did his own investigations. He had maps. He collected evidence. He spoke to eyewitnesses. Would travel around. Now, again, this is 50s and 60s, so there's no internet. Most places in rural Kansas didn't even necessarily have telephones. So a lot of letter writing, lots of cross-country rambles in the car to go do face-to-face visits and things like that. So he has this very long history of being a true dyed-in-the-wool UFO investigator in the 50s, which I can't even imagine, how hard that would be. I mean, it's kind of a pain in the butt now. It's like, oh, let me get on Google, look at all these things for
Could you imagine what
the information I have through. And
could you imagine what fun he would have with the internet?
Oh, he'd have gone nuts.
Yeah.
But so they have one particular room set aside here in the Geneseo Museum that is all of his UFO stuff, and there's some pretty amazing things in there. And it's also important to remember that in the 50s, for whatever reason, any aliens that were on the flying saucers looked like us. A lot of them. They looked very human, and would even say, "Oh, we're from Jupiter. We're from Mars, and I'm from Venus." Things like that. And it wasn't until this mid 60s when NASA's space program started kicking up that we got to see some of these places via very blurry pictures from early satellites. And hey, I'm not seeing this giant civilization that should be living there. But, those stories kind of faded away. But there's certainly plenty of stories still from back then where physical craft landing in people's yards and kind of human looking people getting out and saying hi.
It's pretty cool.
But where Geneseo has become kind of like the Kansas UFO center because of this. And they always try and find something to, kind of perk things up. And as it turns, what we're looking at here, the mysterious Roswell compass. What this is a couple of years ago, the town of Geneseo was doing a deep cleaning thing around the town and fixing it and basically taking an inventory. They were going to be redoing a lot of the streets to include like the curbs, like we're looking at here, because a lot of them had been around since like the 50s. Some of them were falling apart, and their roads are still kind of falling apart. When we were up there a few months ago, they were not great. But if they could come up with the money, kind of a thing, we'll work on the streets. So part of their project was to just go around something simple. Okay, we need to categorize what's fixable and what isn't. So they had this big pressure washer that they were going around town and spraying down all of the edges of the streets, and in this case, like the curbs and sidewalks and things like that, to see what kind of shape they were really in, because it's the curb. It's going to get full of like ages of dirt and silt from a rain runoff and things like that. And this is right in front of the property, which was also owned by Doc Jansen, kind of adjacent to the museum. So it's almost like directly in front of the museum. And when they started pressure washing this curb, they saw this symbol. Basically, it's like a compass rose. We're kind of looking at it upside down in this picture, where the bottom part, it actually does line up with north, south, east, west. And when you look at the southwest corner there on the little arm off of the compass rose, kind of looks a little bit like a flying saucer. And
Oh, yeah.
maybe that's just a coincidence. And somebody sat down, and I did verify this because I had my GPS on my phone and marked that location. And when I got home, I was like, okay, direct southwest line from Geneseo, Kansas, doesn't intersect any towns or cities until it lands firmly in the middle of one Roswell, New Mexico. So I'm sure it's just a coincidence. Now, the people of the town of Geneseo, nobody realized this was even there because where that happens to sit is kind of a low spot, and that's usually where a puddle is. When they had their big unveiling, it had just rained, and they had to like go out there with a broom and are trying to sweep the puddle out a little bit so that people could take a picture of it a couple of years ago. So a lot of people didn't even know this was there, and the best of their knowledge, this might have been one of those original 50s, 60s era sidewalks and curbs that had been installed in the town. So they don't know if there's any like specific meaning other than it just happens to point directly to Roswell, New Mexico, which they wouldn't really have known about necessarily in like the general public about Roswell, because that didn't really come out until, as far as being a really big story, till like in the 70s and 80s, where the stories started circulating and people, as they were getting older, doing deathbed confessions and stuff like that, where you find out the whole story of possible crash of a UFO nearby. So how they would have known that, or is it just a coincidence, which I don't believe in coincidences, it's pretty curious. But they have a lot of tchotchkes. You got I think on the next picture you have the
I do, yeah,
the Roswell compass mug. I have that exact mug, as it turns out, which on the back they've got Dimension G, which is Geneseo, UFO capital of Kansas, Geneseo City Museum.
Cool.
But
I managed to get a blurry picture of it, so I'm glad you have the real thing.
Usually after I drink the contents, it still looks blurry. But since I don't want to get too off on it, because of course they have their website and things like that. People can go check them out on Facebook. But what did you folks think of your visit to? Because that was the second time I'd actually been to Geneseo. What did you three think of it?
I want to go back. That's what I want.
It was amazing.
Yeah, it was so much fun. And Jim Gray there, who was kind of our tour guide, he's kind of the flagship of the place. He is a hoot and a half, and he's so knowledgeable about every little tiny thing in that museum. He's amazing. And we got the chance to hang out with him all day. It was great fun.
He is just
for anybody that's
He's a gem.
that's curious about Jim, is that is not like a costume or a getup or anything like that.
No.
That's how he dresses all the time.
Yep.
Yeah, he's like ride or die. That is Jim all the way.
He's one of the last true cowboys out there.
Yeah.
He actually drove down last September down to Katy, Kansas, and visited our Paracon down there. Your Paracon, it's not my Paracon. And
it's our Paracon.
I recognized him and introduced him to Jess. Like, Jess, do you know who that is? That's the guy who runs
the was like,
museum.
I have no idea who the little cowboy is.
Yeah.
He is a hoot, though. And I will say, so our Paracon will be happening the 28th of September this year. And Jim is going to be there. He's going to give a full presentation on Geneseo. And oh my gosh, there's so much fantastic stuff he brings to it. So you get to like hear these. He's been going through this collection of old, like reel-to-reel recordings of people's UFO experiences. So you get to hear some of those, and he goes through a whole reel of stuff of just pictures of the inside of the museum and all the different things you see on the walls there, which are so cool. I wanted to just like pack them up and hide them under my shirt and take them home with me, because just the graphics and the art to them is so 1940s, 50s, 60s kitsch UFO.
Popular
I would,
science type.
yeah.
Yeah.
You just want to decorate with it, like.
It's really cool. This room
Yeah.
that they're standing in, that's the main UFO room. And there was just, I mean, we looked and looked and looked, and I know we didn't see all of it. I know
We
I
didn't
didn't
see
see all of it.
everything. No.
There's no way
Yeah.
you can take it all in one time. There's no way. Yeah, it was really cool.
Yeah, there's some very detailed illustrations there on the wall that
Yes.
a lot of them are basically illustrations of what contactees were reporting. Basically, it's like, yeah, they came down, they asked if I wanted to go for a ride on their ship, and we went up to this larger like mothership and things like that. And like, I think that's the picture that's like directly over Jim's head, is basically like a cross section of this like mothership thing that they went up and visited and stuff. And I think that one on the right, there's it's a map of some planetary system. I can't remember what it is, but
it is. But I can't recall what it was.
It was. But it's the whole, all the walls are covered in these just amazing you know, like you can tell but that they were hand drawn, but like professionally, like almost
like a drafter.
Done.
Yes.
Yeah. So
Graphic artist,
it's
for sure.
it really looks good, which is I forget his name, but the person who did all of those illustrations was like, there were like 3 people, I think, that were helping out Doc Jansen back in the day doing his investigations, and he did all of these illustrations himself. And as I recall, the picture on the left, there's an image of our solar system, which includes an extraplanet that happens to share Earth's orbit, but it's on the opposite side of the sun. That was the a theory back in the 50s that there could be, you know, it's exactly opposite of the Earth, so that when the Earth rotates around the sun, we would never see it. But as we know now, Earth's orbit's kind of elliptical, so there would be certain times a year where you could see it, but and there's nothing there. But I didn't know back then. You know?
No, and they had a lot of theories. The fellow who drew most of these pieces was actually taught drafting, so he had the knowledge and the skill.
You can tell by the way that they're done, for sure.
I mean, these were done old school with compasses and straight edges, and
yeah.
A lot of newspaper clippings from around the area. This is the full Buck Nelson story, which that's its own show almost for Buck Nelson. So I'm not going to go too deep into that. You can Google that one, because I would only botch the story up trying to tell it myself. But they actually have a few other artifacts from Buck Nelson in other displays. To include a little hair of the dog that
literally
from apparently Venus. The dog bounded off with the visitors as the ship landed, and immediately went into labor.
Where's the dog?
Yep,
there it is. With the tuft of hair.
The dog's name was like Snowy or Queenie or something like that. I forget.
There's King, and I think the other one's name was Queenie.
Yeah,
that's what it was.
King and Queenie.
I think the other one went to live with Mr. Hill. Is that who it was?
Something like that.
I can't remember the story. I should have brushed up on it a little bit better than I did. But yeah, it's really cool, you know.
It's all these, you know, in all of these displays, or all these, like you can tell that, you know, they're typed, you know, in an old school typewriter. So no telling how old some of these displays are. But it's just this amazing tiny little capsules that you can walk around and read up on all of these folks.
Yeah, there's James Hill. He had the dog named Queenie. Was given to him by the Space Brothers from Venus.
Yes.
Yeah, I mean,
I guess it's Queenie's tuft of hair.
Some of these stories are
just, you can spend
amazing.
We spent a couple of hours in there just reading
Yeah.
because you get drawn into all these little mini stories that they've like hand typed out, and you can't help but just sit there and read through them all. And it is small town fun. And I will say, like, beyond this is like just a couple of rooms, one main room, and then it kind of spills out a little bit into the front there. But there's of course other rooms to this museum because it's about the town history too.
Right.
And I've Pam and I both love doing small town history museums because you find the best stuff in
You
them. And this one was fantastic. We found the lady who won the national spam competition
Yep.
with her
Her spam cupcakes, wasn't it that what
cupcake
was?
recipe.
Yeah.
Yes. I think her name was Estelle, but she was on like national news for her.
She was, yeah.
Her
Yeah,
cupcake
yeah.
recipe.
They have a copy of like her acceptance speech,
Yeah.
which is really cute.
Yeah.
They didn't have the recipe up though. I was kind of sad about that. We'll have to try to find
Yeah, I
it
would have taken a picture. I mean,
for sure.
we'd be trying it. I mean,
Well, I think
like
we're
it.
all still too full to be thinking about food at this time. We had
Yeah.
a giant lunch right before this.
If you guys are interested in our visit, and I suggest a trip to a trip for Kansas UFO Day, if you're able to. The raw footage from our visit, which is probably 2/3 of our time there, I managed to get on video. There, it's on our YouTube, and you can check it out and see us
Yeah.
go all goo for all the UFO stuff.
Yeah. So just so everybody at home knows, okay, July 6th is National UFO Day in Geneseo. Come and visit. There's a parade, there's panels and speeches done all day long, and talks, and we'll be there, and there's booths set up, and you can go through the museum and just enjoy the day. Hutchinson, Kansas is just about a 35-minute ride south of there. And of course, as everybody knows, in Hutchinson is the Cosmosphere, which is also fantastic. So if you want to like bring the kids and take them on like a space type of weekend, it's kind of the perfect thing to do. Hit Hutchinson, go to the Cosmosphere, go to UFO Day, and just spend the weekend being all spacey. It'd be super cool. And if you want to visit the museum off of that weekend, you can just call beforehand, so you can they can open it up for you because it's open by appointment. So
Absolutely worth the trip though.
And,
Yeah, it really is.
Also on Kansas UFO Day, well, the last couple of years, but this year specifically, they're big fans of old classic 50s era sci-fi up there, so they usually have some kind of movie or showing there once it gets dark. It's kind of and this year they are actually having a unveiling or presentation of a life-size Gort robot from the movie The Day the Earth Stood Still,
which is super cool.
Which is still a cool movie. I mean,
it is. It's a very good movie.
That's exciting.
Yeah, I'm
excited.
anxious to get my picture taken with Gort.
Yes.
It's going to be fun.
Oh, here's the ground scooter that was used on the moon. The schematics for it. It's pretty cool.
There you go.
Yeah, this artwork
is
is
a really
just
good example of the artwork in all of the drawings that are there. So
yeah, I mean,
like I said, I just wanted to steal it and like shove it in a jacket and take it home with me and hang it because I would love to have a whole room that looked like this.
Oh,
so
yeah.
much fun.
I just thought
be a good merchandising thing is to have like copies made for exactly that.
Yes.
Yeah.
They should do that.
That would be really neat.
You get it scanned and into PDFs and print it.
Yeah.
There was a lot of news articles that were posted all over the place, like this one, the Hutchinson News Herald. There was a flying saucer seen near Kingman. There's all kinds of little reports like that everywhere. It's just like there's so much to look at and to take in.
And several.
And they have the good old creepy dolls. They have the What else did they have? Oh my gosh, everything. There was a
Yeah.
stuffed dog. I don't remember. There was
Several of
all
those
kinds of
early
things.
sightings that we talked about last time were
Yeah.
actually fairly near this location,
Yeah, they weren't too far.
within an hour's drive. So,
Especially the ones around Dighton and Delphos.
yep. And isn't this really close to I just had a brain aneurysm or something. I don't know. Um,
That's not allowed.
the one with the ring,
Delphos. Delphos.
Delphos. Isn't this fairly close to Delphos?
It is.
Yeah.
So there's a lot of activity up there, and these were just some of the early sightings in Kansas. There's been tons of sightings. There is this book here. Basically is just a spreadsheet of all the sightings in all the zip codes in Kansas.
Yes.
And
which is really cool.
There's a ton of them. You can get this for, I think, about every state.
Yeah, they have one for every state.
So, I mean,
can you imagine how long that took them to compile that? Oh my goodness. Can't even begin to imagine.
They had a giant database that already had all that information in it. And it was during all the COVID lockdowns. So they were stuck inside. It's like, maybe we should compile this into some easier format in case other people are interested in looking at you, like maybe their own state or local area or something. Because that's the first thing, of course, you do is you look up your own home zip codes. How many were seeing?
Yeah.
Well, I have plans to buy Missouri, Arkansas, Kansas, or Missouri, Arkansas, Oklahoma, Nebraska, and Colorado. I want to get all the surrounding states.
So instead of a muck, it's a monk. You gotta put it in there, and in a C in there.
No, there's going to be a lot of stuff in there. Yeah. But I mean, it's fascinating. It really is fascinating.
Cool.
I'm excited about it. I think it's going to be a lot of fun. I can't wait. Okay, let's pull this down.
You just want to go back to that restaurant in Lindsborg again.
I'm telling you what.
We're absolutely going to stop there again, and I might have 2 meals.
What was the name of that place?
Bella Soul Bistro.
Oh, it's amazing. Here's a shout out.
In Lindsborg, Kansas. They have the most incredible fish tacos ever.
Yeah, I mean, they're a good.
Jennifer had them too, so she knows.
Yeah,
she agreed.
Yeah, the burger I had was just amazing.
I was on vacation and I was trying to recreate the fish tacos, and I sent Enzo a picture, and he's like, "You're gonna get in trouble. You're doing some copyright violations there, surely."
Of course, I wasn't super hungry. It's like, oh, I'll get something light. I'll just have the BLT. The B in the BLT was for apparently back bacon, where there were all these big. Honestly, I thought it was like chicken tenders or something.
It looked like chicken tenders.
We all thought you got the wrong thing. Yeah.
Yeah. I'm like, no. It's
it was 1 inch thick bacon.
Support Enzo afterwards. He's like,
I'd have the Oompa Loompas roll me out of the place.
But yeah, absolutely. We will definitely plug them because, man, that was some good food.
Yeah.
I hope somebody else is driving.
Jennifer's on there. Yes, the fish tacos were amazing. Yay. Thank you, Jen, for backing me up. That's funny. All righty.
Yeah. So we'll definitely, as we're coming up to July 6th, we'll make sure to remind everybody of that coming up so everybody can come out and see. And I believe we were going to try to get a little bit of footage of Jim, maybe a little mini interview with him that we can show on the show later. And maybe we can convince him to come on the show. I don't know how savvy he is with computers, but I would love to have him on maybe. So
yeah.
That would be a blast to get him on.
Mm-hmm.
For sure.
So
all right.
Go
ahead.
Oh no, I was just gonna say I just imagine like how many stories he has. Like I know we haven't even scratched the surface of the things he could tell us. So
oh yeah.
He is. He's
It's
got the
one of
best
those-
laugh. Oh my gosh.
Yeah, there's something about there's certain people in the world that can really spin a yarn, and you're just captivated to sit there and listen to every word of it. And,
Yeah.
and Jim is
Right.
one of those kind of people.
Yeah, he could tell you about a recipe or something, and it's like,
Yeah, and
really?
you'd be on the edge of
He
your seat.
needs he needs a guitar so he can strum while he talks.
He does.
Like he reminds me, he reminds me of. He reminds me of. Do you remember on the old Tom and Jerry cartoons, the Grandpa Mouse, the one that sang Crambone?
Oh, did he have
played
the
the
really
guitar?
long mustache?
Yeah, and he would pull the whiskers out to restring his guitar. That's
Oh,
what
I
he
forgot
reminds
about
me of.
him. That's funny. That's awesome.
Yeah.
I love it. All right, so that's going to kind of wrap us up on UFOs across Kansas. So let's move on to 37th parallel, which woo, is a really good one for us because we're based in Katy, except for Enzo. Enzo's up in Derby, and he's still up right.
He's
very
within
close.
the zone.
Yeah, he is. It's within. I think it's a 70-mile swath. So yeah,
Derby is sitting at 37 degrees, 32.
you
So
did
he's
it. You're
right-
in.
You're in.
Yay!
So, yeah,
What
there
talks
you
you? Hey, yeah, that's a.
In the weirdness with us. Woohoo!
Wouldn't imagine being anywhere else. It's
Right. So
go. Yeah, you ain't cool unless you're on the 37th.
we need to put that on.
You're not
you
cool
saw
unless
that
you
Farrakhan.
own that book.
That's
Yeah.
right.
Yeah.
Oh, look at us. We're all three together on that one.
Yep.
Yay.
Aww.
The guy is a pretty good writer.
He's not bad. Not bad at all.
I'll have to admit, I was a little disappointed when I started reading it because then basically this isn't like
It isn't like a research book.
fact-filled research type book where it's all the different sightings across. Because on the picture on the cover, you can sort of see he has a thing in the U.S. and these dotted lines and that are supposed to be like UFO sightings that cut across the 37th parallel across the United States.
Mm.
And when I was reading it, it's basically more of a semi-fictional narrative based story about this guy's investigation to do the book. Was encouraged doing the book and all that. So I wasn't mentally prepared for that after hearing about it. It's like, oh, okay, I'll check it out. And it's like, what is this? Wait, what's happening? But that's okay.
It's a
really
fairly compelling story, though. I mean,
it is. It is.
Yeah.
And I thought it was hilarious because y'all know how clueless I can totally be sometimes. And on Amok, one of the guests that Missouri had come on was Debbie Ziegelmeyer, and she's the head of the MUFON network in Missouri. And so we're backstage and we're talking, and I'm like, yeah, what do you tell me your thoughts on 37th parallel. She's the Debbie Ziegelmeyer in the book.
yeah,
Chuck
she's in the book.
Zukowski is her brother. So she's the one that actually got chased out of Scammon, Kansas, back across the state line and stuff.
Yeah.
She was very nice about it. She was like, okay, yeah, that was me actually. And I was like, wow, and then I got to meet her in Arkansas, and she's really nice.
Yeah,
But
I
I
mean,
felt a little derpy.
well,
Par for the
and
course.
it's cool that that's where we live, though.
It is, yeah.
So
It is
It
because
is.
we know all the areas there, and yeah, that stuff's kind of fun to do it like that. So let me
I was going to say, perhaps we should explain exactly what the 37th parallel is and where it's at.
Yeah, we are going
For those who are not in the know to
pull
know.
that up right now. Okay, so
There
like
we
we said
go.
earlier, the 37th parallel, it basically runs completely around the globe, and it's 37 degrees north, of oh my gosh, I just lost the word. It's not
north
the
of
prime
the
meridian.
equator.
Thank you. The other one,
I know how you think, Pam. I can finish your
You
sentence.
saw it, didn't you?
So,
That's funny. Now it does define, as you can see on the map here, this actually dips down a little bit lower than what it should be when it hits Kansas.
Yeah, because
Um,
Kansas state line is
Yes.
state line is the 37th parallel.
The southern borders of Utah, Colorado, and Kansas, and then the northern borders of Arizona, New Mexico, and Oklahoma run right on the 37th parallel, and that was done intentionally. This dates back to like 1854 when they were first, dividing up the unorganized territory. So those particular ones run in a line, but then it goes ahead and it stretches on through Kentucky and into Virginia and across clear through California. Let's see, I know I have a better. We decided to skip that one. I ran across this, and I think this is really interesting because these red dots on here, they aren't all of them, but these are quite a few reportings of UFO sightings along the 37th parallel, which is crazy. So, I don't know.
Yeah.
What jumps out at me about this is you can see how tightly packed the sightings are, like for Western Kansas, Oklahoma, the northern panhandle of Texas there. And those particular areas, not a lot of people live there.
That's very true.
There's no big, like really large cities to speak of, in the grand scheme of things. And it's a lot of, at least for like Western Kansas, a lot of small, like Geneseo sized towns just kind of scattered about here and there.
Yeah, just a little hole in the walls. The population is small, but comparatively to the sightings per capita is huge, and the number of people who've decided to go ahead and report them.
That's what I was getting ready to say. We're looking at reports here that don't include. I mean, Caney would be just probably under the second L in parallel, right in that area.
Yeah, right
You
between
see
the
any
L's, I
circles?
believe.
I don't see any circles right there, and we know of tons of reports that we know of.
Yeah, my son has seen them.
Yeah, like
Yeah, Jess, here, let me knock
I brought
down.
this. I didn't get it to Pam in time to take a picture. So this is out of my own research. Let me show you where everything is. So here's the Kansas-Oklahoma line. We've got Arkansas, Missouri.
Wrong one.
Pam!
I was trying to get you to pull up, and it didn't work.
It's all right. I'm just showing this really quick. So you can kind of see everywhere where you see orange, those are sightings. There's around 400 of them here. Caney is right there. So that whole mishmash right there of sightings. And this is only updated to 2010. I
And
mean,
it's
there's a whole lot
so
that's
there's
not on there.
14 years worth of reports that are not on that. That's a
Yeah.
lot.
and this is just our little section right here, like this little 4 states area right there. So
It's all
just to
within an
kind of get
hour
an
drive.
idea.
It's
And we
huge.
always remind everybody, out of 10 actual sightings, only like 1 or 2 of those sightings are ever reported. So imagine that's around 300 to 400 sightings that I've logged. Times what? Times 8 maybe?
Times 8 to
Yeah.
10, yeah.
Okay, I've messed
Plus
up my
all the
stuff, so
ones you haven't caught up on.
give me some grace here for a second, guys. Let me make sure I got the right one on here. Oh, I did. Okay, I got it back. Phew.
Right.
I was like, oh no, it's not working now.
Good job.
Yeah. Okay.
Learning as
So
I go.
they call the 37th parallel the UFO highway. That there is so much more on this highway than just UFO activity. There is everything. There are alien type stuff to go along with the UFO. There's cryptids. There's the livestock mutilations that everybody.
Bigfoot.
Yeah.
For the biggest
Hauntings. Burial mounds. The Indians built on this line a lot. And what they built on these lines were not living type situations. They were tributes and burial mounds and places to worship. Interestingly enough, they didn't live on these lines that much. Petroglyphs, light anomalies, just every kind of craziness you can think about lives and thrives on this line.
Joplin Spooklight.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yep. Joplin's. That's one of them that I have down on there too to look at.
Yeah.
And
I have a huge list that I can go over towards the end of this, but I'm gonna let them talk about. I mean, we're gonna do some like cattle mutilation stuff and whatever
yeah, we
else
got a
y'all
bunch
want to talk about.
of different things to
Yeah.
touch on. One thing that's interesting, a lot of our focus is going to be on the United States tonight. But there are things along this 37th parallel completely around the world. And backstage, we were actually talking about Göbekli Tepe is on there.
Yeah.
She said it.
I did. I only struggled just a little.
Congratulations.
There's a bunch of really cool sites like that. So
Sargasso Sea.
There's enough to make you question: is it intentional that these were placed upon the 37th parallel?
Yep.
And if so, what reasoning? There's a lot of different theories. I know one of them is maybe there's a piezoelectric effect, meaning like when the plates shift and different things, and there's quartz crystal in the ground, and it's enough, you've got the positive end, the negative end, and if you put pressure on it, it's going to give an electric charge. We know it does that. And so if these plates shift just enough, does it shoot out an electrical charge, or is it something that we can't perceive or we don't know, but maybe an extraterrestrial race does know and they can pull that resource? We don't know. It could be something like that. It could be anything at this point.
We don't
Possibilities
know
are endless
just that
right
it
now.
is. Which means one of the things you could do is if you could travel around that, you could visit all kinds of really cool places.
Wow, that would be like a bucket list trip, wouldn't it? Just to travel on the 37th parallel.
I want to hit the Oracle of Delphi.
Ooh,
It's on the line.
That's so neat.
Yeah, I mean, there's all kinds of
and
amazing places.
Hawaii, is that how you say it? Hawaii, Japan. They're the UFO capital of Japan. It's dead on the 37th, just like Kenya is. So
isn't that interesting?
Yeah.
Wow.
Is it a coincidence? Like we said earlier, who really believes in coincidences? There's always something behind it.
I don't believe there's a coincidence at all. I don't know what's going on per se, but I don't think it's a coincidence.
Mm-mm. I know. So if we kind of start looking at some of the landmarks along the 37th parallel, I know if we start on the East Coast, which Jess, we did a Bordertown Presents, not quite a year ago. And she did this great visual for everyone where she started from one coast to the other and just basically put up the name of the site and ran it completely around the room. So it would give you a really good visual of how this works. And when she did that, she noticed that on each end, you want to tell them about that, what you found? Because that was pretty cool.
Oh, yeah. So like Pam said, like when we do these presents, it's done in the little extra room at the library. Not a whole lot to see. And when we're talking about some of these things, you really want to put a visual in front of people so they can really grasp what it is you're trying to show them. And when it came to the 37th parallel, I knew there were many, many interesting spots on the 37th, UFO crashes and petroglyphs and just, the mysterious oddities that come along with the 37th. So I spent a few weeks just researching what fell along the 37th parallel and putting them in an order. And then, like Pam said, I put them on paper. I put the site, what it was about, and the actual latitude so they could see in order. And I did 45 or 50, could have done more, but ran out of paper. and printer ink that day, and strung them from one end of the room. You could go 360 almost and see what the 37th comprises of. But interestingly enough, in my research, and this is one of the reasons why I love to research, I found the most interesting things. One of which was Pam was referring to, was the fact that it seems as though the US military likes to protect our line. There are major military installations at the very ends of where the 37th touches the US and periodically throughout. There's a lot of important sites that fall on it. And I was just like, why would you put such huge military installations literally right on the 37th end to end at the coast? I understand having installations on the coast to protect us on both sides, but to have them fall dead nuts on the parallel was just a
Right.
little weird to me.
It's fascinating.
And you've got Los Alamos,
Yes.
and Oak Ridge Nuclear Labs
Mhm.
are both on that line. I mean, that's the Manhattan Project right there,
Yeah.
Mhm.
on
Yeah.
almost opposite ends of the country.
The Pentagon falls on it, which, that's one of the most
Yeah, pretty close to it. Yeah,
government, military installations. If you're going to start
Area
looking at stuff like that,
51.
Area 51 is on it. Fort Knox, that's where, that protects our nation's gold reserve. It's on the 37th parallel.
McConnell Air Force Base
DC
is close enough.
is just a hair north of the parallel. But, that's also been a place where there was, I think it was 1952. It was the site of a major UFO event, and it lasted over 2 weekends at least, and that was seen by air traffic controllers at Washington National Airport and Andrews Air Force Base. They
Right,
detected
that was a big one.
seven separate UFOs on their radars at the time. And,
Yeah.
there was news reports done on it. I know David Brinkley was one of the reporters on that. And he said they didn't know what it was, but they knew it wasn't an aircraft and they knew it wasn't a cloud. Other than that, they had no clue.
It was a solid hit on the radar.
It was. And so when it happened again the next weekend, they sent fighter jets to scramble, they were scrambled to intercept. But as soon as they closed in, they vanished. That's the darn
UFO
thing
way.
about the UFOs. There was
do.
get close.
Engage stealth.
Yeah.
Looking device engaged.
We've
So
toyed with the
Enzo's our
simians enough.
Enzo's our military guy. What do you think about the military bases in capping the parallel in the US? Is it just
One of the common arguments about 37th parallels stuff that kind of like try to debunk it, kind of a thing, to say there's not a whole lot to it, is for the United States, at least. It's different, of course, in different parts of the world, but for the US, the 37th parallel is about that north-south line where it's kind of like that weird Goldilocks zone as far as just general weather. Not too hot, not too cold, things like that. And with as wide as an area of what that 37th parallel encompasses, we have military bases all over the place. So for them to fall on that line in a lot of places, yeah, I would expect that. You could probably draw any random line and have a lot of bases fall within it. But there's certainly, it does pretty much fall in a north-south kind of middle of the country thing as far as the United States goes. So being equidistant from your borders, north-south and east-west, that's kind of, you would expect that. That's where you would kind of want to place something that's halfway between areas rather than like the four corners or anything like that, where they can go either direction and still be equally distant away. But I don't think there's, I'm certainly not aware of any, secret plan where there's, because there's some parallel stuff in military bases. You can really go down a deep rabbit hole about DUMBs and things like that, deep underground military bases, and, where you've got supposedly they have these giant tunnels with like an express bullet train kind of thing
Yep.
that goes between different bases and things like that. It can really get wild. I'm sure we do. I mean, I know we do have underground type facilities. I don't know that it necessarily goes miles beneath the earth with giant like train tunnel things connecting them all. There might be something similar to that if they're relatively close, but I don't. I guess technically we have the technology to do that kind of thing. So I guess there might be a couple, but as far as a whole network crossing the country, I'm not sure about that one. And a lot of them, again, all on that line, which again, it's kind of like that middle part of the country. So again, you kind of expect that.
Interesting.
I will say, so there actually aren't a lot of bases on the line. There really isn't. There's the two conglomerates on either end. So at the California end, you've got the whole like Alameda, Travis, that kind of situation going there on that coast. And then when you hit the other coast, you've got Norfolk, And if anybody at home knows Norfolk, holy cow, that's a base times 20 out there. Like Norfolk Naval Base and all the training and all that. That is a huge area right there. So that kind of plunks right there in the middle. And then right down through the middle, you just have a couple. McConnell kind of falls along there. I was trying to remember.
You've got Nellis Air Force Base is there. Cheyenne Mountain.
Cheyenne Mountain.
That's where NORAD is.
Yeah,
it's on there.
But I didn't even count Nellis because it's too far away. Like I kept
if we had like a map that had like whatever the border range is, there's a lot of them that are right on that edge. I'm just looking at the map. It's like, okay, there's a base there, there's a base there, there's a base there.
Yeah.
Which are relatively close to those things.
Yeah.
You've got let's see.
Tinker is close.
You got Tinker there in Oklahoma. You got Little Rock has a big base there. What's that one in southern Missouri? The B-2 is out there. Whiteman? Of course, we mentioned like Fort Knox there in Kentucky. Going west, we've got actually, I think it's like 3 or 4 different bases there around the Colorado Springs area to include NORAD.
Yeah.
South of that, over into New Mexico, you've got Kirtland Air Force Base and Cannon Air Force Base, which, Cannon's a little bit more further south, but Kirtland, which is right in Albuquerque. So that's kind of on the edge of that range right there as well. There's several.
Yeah.
There's more than you think.
Interesting.
Okay.
Let me back this up. I was looking at other stuff and I got one of the really cool landmarks, kind of getting away from the military for a minute, is the Mammoth Cave System. Kentucky's Mammoth Cave System is on the 37th, which
and there's a high weirdness amount of stuff going on around that.
That's where we get our Kentucky goblins from. That's where we get the giants. Some of the giants came from the
Well, a lot of your giants come from are talked about out west, and they're on the line.
That's true. Yeah.
So
missing 411.
Yeah, big time.
A lot of missing 411 around the line. A lot of national parks on the line.
There are a lot of national parks.
Yes,
which is interesting.
Death Valley.
When we look at famous UFO things, we've got Cape Girardeau, Missouri, which there was a UFO crash that was reported there. It was as early as like 1941, and it occurred. It's a little south of the 37th, but it's just over 100 miles, which when you're flying, as Enzo can tell you, 100 miles is not very far, is it?
Doesn't take long.
And it's pretty amazing when you really think about it, because we've got 2 of the biggest UFO events that essentially kicked off all the modern ufology field, which was Cape Girardeau and Roswell. And they are both either on or near the 37th parallel, which Roswell is on the 37th. So I always thought that
Aztec,
was,
New Mexico, there was a
yes. Yep.
crash there in 48. And then we had the Mantell, and it wasn't a crash of a UFO, but it was a crash of a interceptor. Lieutenant, or I guess he was a major at the time, maybe. I can't remember. They went to intercept a UFO, and he crashed his plane. That was one that may have caused the
Actual
some of
fatality.
these. Well, yeah, it was an actual fatality,
Mhm.
but that brought a lot of.
It brought the threat narrative into it, where, because at that time they were still going, okay, are these some weird atmospheric thing? Is this real?
Yeah,
Go up there and chase that thing, whatever it is.
it brought a lot of attention to that with the military, and then they started. It was around that time when they started having their first investigation, government-sponsored investigations.
Mhm.
So
That actually kind of kicked off Project Blue Book before it was Project Blue Book. I can't remember. We went through what it was before. Do you remember?
like Grudge.
Judge Stein.
Grudge.
Yeah,
Yes.
there's a couple of them.
Yeah, whichever one started. That's pretty much what kicked that whole thing off, was that fatality that Mark was talking about. I know the one at Aztec, New Mexico, that was from like 1948, and there's actually a it's not like a government landmark, but there is a landmark left there, and it talks about the spacecraft having been approximately 100 feet in diameter, and it was 18 feet tall, so it's relatively big.
Yeah.
And it was said to have been one of the most intact crafts that the government had recovered at that time. And sadly, all occupants, as many as 16, died as a result of this crash, making full disclosure of both purpose and origin all but impossible. So, and they don't say, did they look like humans? We don't know. But it was 1948, so I can about almost guarantee you they look like humans.
Falls
Human-ish,
within
anyway.
that Doc Jansen time frame there. So
Absolutely. You know, and something else that's on the 37th is the Grand Canyon. And we haven't done it on this podcast yet, but with Mark and Phil on What If Tomorrow on the Fringe, we did do talk about
The Egyptian
ancient-
caves.
Yes, the
Yeah.
Egyptian caves in the Grand Canyon. So, you know, there's rumors of Egyptian artifacts being hidden within it, which is
Oh yeah, there's
interesting.
high weirdness along that line.
There
Just
is.
wherever you go, some of the weirdest stuff.
And the
in the
Taos
country.
hum, they don't know what causes that. And that's on the 37th. Actually, it's on the, I'm sorry, it's on the 36.41. So it's very close to.
yep.
Yeah,
There are a couple of outliers, but there's certainly, I would certainly count that in the that general vicinity, because that's one of those weird things that some people can hear it and some people can't. And the people that can it's constant. It doesn't matter if you're in your car, if you're outside, if you're inside, if you've got earplugs in, you can always hear it. And I guess like tinnitus or something, you can kind of get used to it and
Yeah.
kind of
some
ignore it.
people just leave because
And
they can't handle it.
That would be wild. I think it started like what, in the early 90s. So it's not a relatively old phenomenon so far as they go.
right.
But it can really, I mean, it can cause dizziness and insomnia, you know, headaches. I think according to everything that I saw, it's like 2% of the population of Taos can actually hear it. They call them hearers.
That's just weird.
But you know, they say there's no proof that it actually exists, other than all this 2% of the population that was like, hey, you got to do something here. It's driving us nuts.
Yeah. Yep. Well, even the government investigated and they couldn't figure out. Again, no clue.
Mm-hmm.
Or they do, and they just want to say they have no clue.
Yeah, there you go.
Did they say there was a sound, but they didn't know the origin, or did they just say there was nothing to it?
They could detect nothing.
Yeah, I was going to say, I think they said they didn't detect anything, which is, I mean, if you can't prove what it is and there's a need to know, I guess if you just say, nah, you're crazy. We don't hear anything, even though they hear it.
Well, you know, the government has a history of telling people that other people are crazy
What?
when they were dead right.
No.
Mhm.
You know,
I think of some recent examples. We won't
I
get into that. But
Maybe a few
yeah.
recent examples.
it is one of those things that well, I mean, as far as just like the Taos home, for example, if it's high frequency stuff, that's something that we should be able to detect. That ultrasonic level is a little bit more difficult because there's so many other things that would mix in with it. That, I mean, just the crustal movement of the Earth falls within that range. So it would be kind of hard to narrow that down. But I don't recall the Taos area being like a high earthquake, volcanic type zone.
yeah.
Which I could be wrong on that, but so it is one of those strange things. It could even be like the shape of your skull doing a harmonic resonance with something that is out there that we can't detect, and that's why only a 2% of the people can even hear it. Kind
That's
of a
interesting.
thing.
I wonder if they've checked that.
I don't know how you'd have to measure everyone's skull.
Yeah, is it phrenology? Is it what that was called, where they would measure your
that was
head, look for
the
specific
bumps in your
things?
head? Yeah.
Let's do
That's
it.
pretty wild.
They could just check my brain. It's smooth.
No wrinkles.
No wrinkles.
So if you want to, Pam, if you'll pull like one of the pictures back up that has the US in it, I'll just go down through some of our listings so people can kind of get some of the crazy that is happening on this line. So yeah, that's perfect. So I'm going to start over in California, and we're just going to work from right to left, or left to right, excuse me, because I'm backwards. Right, left to right, right to left.
Start with California or where?
Yeah, I'm going to start with California.
Okay.
Let's start with California. So we got all the bases and everything there, blah, 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 blah. Right? And then we're going to move into Yosemite National Park. Now, Yosemite is very large, and it actually extends past this. So you would think, well, not that interesting. You're going to go through some state parks. But the state parks that I'm going to list, I'm actually going to speak about something particular that happened right on the 37th within that national park. So Yosemite is known for the missing 411 cluster. It's the largest amount of people that have gone missing within a condensed space. They're estimating anywhere from 50 to over 100 people have gone missing within just a 4-mile radius within Yosemite. It's known as the Great Cluster. So that passes right on the 37th. Moving out of there into Death Valley. Mark mentioned Death Valley before, and right on the 37th, you're going to pass through the Uhibe Crater. And the Uhibe Crater, for those of you at home that may not know, is known for the caves that were found that had the giants in them. People that were 8, 9, 10 feet tall. And one of these days we will do a full show on that. If you want to go back to the What If Tomorrow on the Fringe, go back 2 years, I believe it is.
2 years.
And you can see, the whole series that we did on the giants. It's amazing. And it will blow your mind.
I can't remember what we called it.
Go to Spreaker.com and look up What If Tomorrow, look up On the Fringe, because that was after we changed, we split off into 2 shows, and you will be able to find it.
He disappeared.
Mid-sentence.
I got it.
See? That's what happens when you're on the 37th.
Just kidding about those government conspiracies. Yeah.
I will continue. Well, so
I was going to throw in something before Mark gets back. Since we're talking about the Giants, did I mention how I'm doing a trip to Virginia City later this year? Mm-hmm. It's right down the road from Lovelock Cave, which that's everyone's not familiar with the story. That's the story of ancient Native Americans where they had giants that they were marauding and constantly fighting with. and they finally got the upper hand and chased them into these low mountains where these caves were. They all the giants are hiding in this cave, and they just started throwing in anything that would burn, stumps and trees and leaves, and caught all of it on fire to just either smoke them out so they could shoot them with arrows, or to just suffocate them in their hole. And then they didn't have a giant problem after that. But yeah, that's just up the road from where I'll be in Virginia City in July. So I plan on swinging by there and checking that out.
Cool. Well, take pictures so you can report back.
You have to do a live stream.
Oh, that would be cool.
It's the middle of nowhere. I don't know if I'd be able to.
Maybe not work. Darn it.
Okay, so like moving out of the Death Valley area, we're going to move over to Crystal Springs, Nevada. So Crystal Springs isn't actually a town. It's a little ghost town area now. But this is a hot spot. People actually go out to this place to have UFO encounters and receive signs. People say that if you go out there and, you do your meditating thing and stuff, that you'll actually be spoken to and receive signs about what you're supposed to do with your life and blah, 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 blah. It's kind of like that kind of a center. Moving out of there, we hit, of course, Area 51. Very well known. Yay, Mark's back.
I crashed.
In Area 51.
We were like, wow, mid-sentence, poof, you were gone.
Yeah. Is
We
anytime we talk
crashed
about
into Area 51.
anything we talk about anything remotely important, something technical happens.
Huh. Weird.
Almost like usually there's a little, like a freeze or something, but no, you were just like, boom.
Yeah. All right, so Area 51. Not going to explain that. If you all at home don't know what Area 51 is, I don't even know how you found our show.
You
Weird.
live yeah.
Yeah. So we're gonna move over into Utah. The Red Cliff site. The Red Cliff site in Utah is very important. So now we're into the Anasazi, the cliff dwellings, and all of the weirdness that happens around there. Over into Zion National Park, Utah, another cluster of missing 411. Not as big as the Yosemite site, but still big. And they are also a huge UFO hotspot. People go to Zion just to see the UFOs. Like literally, camp out nightly and just watch them zigzag back and forth. Moving over, we'd already talked about the Grand Canyon.
Yeah.
So we've got the Egyptian caves and some other nuttiness on there with that. Over the Grand Staircase Monument in Utah, hotspot for UFOs again. Just go out there and watch them. The Ohato Monument Valley in Arizona, same thing, hot with UFOs, and it's another missing 411 area. Shiprock, Cedar Hill, New Mexico. That one is known for the Roswell rock.
Yeah.
You all know what the Roswell rock is, of course. It was found back in like early 2000, right? Had all the weird cryptid designs on it and stuff like that. Dulce, New Mexico, the crazy Apache reservation and stuff that's there. And then you go into, so you got McConnell Air Force Base kind of sits there, and then we've got our area, and we've got so much. So Caney, of course, that's right on it. And the entire bottom part of Kansas, almost out to the edge, is deep river valley area that is known for its cryptids. Holy cow, the cryptids. We've got petrosaurs and dogmen and anything that you can think of there. Also just below that in Oklahoma. So now you're getting into the Beaver Sands area. Light anomalies, and they've got cryptids galore. And Oklahoma along the 37th has several lakes that are entrance exit portals for UFO. Like crazy, right? So we've got Noxie Monster sits in there. We've got the Joplin Spook Light, which Mark was talking about earlier. Then we're gonna the big cabin lions that we talked about the last time. The Mark Twain National Forest in Missouri. Oh
Which
my
is huge.
lord. We don't have time to go in to what happens there. The treasure cave that is still supposedly being watched there. We'll go into that one of these days. That'll be a fun one to talk about.
Yeah,
So
that
we
was-
should go just on Mark Twain National Forest.
Yeah. The Cape Girardeau that we were just talking about.
Yeah.
And then we're going to move into Kentucky. Holy cow. And that's kind of Enzo's stomping grounds there. You've got Kelly Hopkinsville. Edgar Casey was born in that area, so it's got all that weirdness to it. Mammoth Caves. Fort Campbell sits in there. Hellier for all
that's
you
what I was gonna
Hellier
say. Hellier,
fans.
Yeah.
Here's in there. Yeah.
Yeah, and much more. Just the Mammoth Cave system alone holds about 80,000 weird things that we could talk about.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Getting a little bit close, like they claim the 37th, but they aren't really right on the 37th, is Point Pleasant. Same weird area though.
Yeah.
As there's
Most of West Virginia in general is it's got that
Mhm.
Appalachian weirdness to it.
That's
Uh,
why it's the best Virginia.
Yeah.
It's
Oh, Flatwood Monster. I almost forgot that out of
Oh, yeah.
Kentucky.
yeah.
Got to include Flatwoods Monster, right? Also, within this huge swath here are 3 major paranormal institutes and universities that are just on the paranormal. Why are they on the 37th? I don't know. Right? Washington, D.C. claims it, but they're actually on the upper.
They're a little bit above.
They're above.
They're a little
They're
bit
just
out.
a little bit above.
Yeah.
But yeah, and then like that isn't even, that's just like the surface ones. Those are like the big ones. There's no way we could sit here and go into every little thing that sits on that line, but that'll just give you a general view of the insanity we're looking at on this line. And now I have tested this, so I was like, I wonder if I just pick a line, can I go to it and just find scads amount of stuff on it, because there's more happening around us than what we know. Didn't really find anything. I know there are some hot spots on some lines, but it didn't seem to follow through like the 37th does.
Yeah.
The only thing interesting I did find was up on the 40th, between the 40th and the 41st, I believe, is that weird line of all the Ivy League colleges that follow
Oh,
through.
yeah.
Yeah.
Huh.
And why they did that, I don't know. But in my opinion, the 37th is its own weird little thing.
It's
I
its own
didn't
animal.
find that. It is very strange.
Why the 37th though? Why not the 36th or the 38th? Or why that one? It just seems so odd. I mean, obviously, as you've mentioned, there is a ton of stuff going on there, and we saw the map earlier with all the different sightings on it. So there's something going on, but why particularly there? What is it about the 36? Are there? I know more
around the world. There's all kinds of stuff that happens on the 37th.
I know you know a lot more about like ley lines and things like that. Is that something that could come into play here?
We talk about the ley lines as being like the nervous system of the planet. So, maybe this is like the spine, the spinal nerves. I don't know.
As far as I know, that is not a ley line.
Huh.
At all. Yeah, I don't.
Not on its own, no.
It doesn't, the 37th doesn't have the same attributes as the ley lines do. The ley lines act differently than the 37th. Just seems to be like exactly like it says, a highway. So it's like an area where there's just constant movement and things going on and things occurring and
lots of traffic.
Whereas the ley lines, many of the ley lines are quiet. Some of the ley lines only act up at certain times. Some ley lines are constantly active. Some of them are part-time active. it just depends. And it really depends on where the natural magnetic anomalies are on the planet. Hence why our area is so active. Our magnetic anomaly area is always active. So I think that really charges the line. So the 37th it's its own beast.
Not to get off topic or anything, just out of curiosity, did you notice an uptick in activity in your area a couple of weeks ago after we had the big aurora blast?
Not particularly. We are a hotbed of UFO activity right now, and I have not seen it dip in any direction. It's been pretty consistent. The only thing that hasn't, well, we've had a lot of overcast. We've had so much rain lately that we're not seeing as much UFO activity, but I simply think it's because we don't have the clear skies right now. It has just been overcast a lot.
Sense.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But the northern lights were beautiful.
They
That was
were.
wild. Such a cool thing to be able to see this.
I was just curious.
Cool to see it this far south, but scary at the same time, because what does it mean? You know, that we're seeing it.
It means, because the storm itself wasn't really that big, but our magnetic field, basically, that is around the Earth is in a weakened state right now because we're getting near a pole reversal, magnetic pole reversal. And that's what it does is as it starts, you'll see it's the poles start wandering around all over the place, which they have been doing for like the last dozen or so years.
Oh yeah.
Which is one of the indications that they're about to switch, which happens every,
and it's not cataclysmic like water.
It is. It is. But it does flip around like that. However, part of that process is that magnetic field that goes around the Earth, which is what we're seeing when these particles from the sun get shot at us, and they hit that magnetic field and they go around to the North and the South Pole. When it gets weaker, that whole magnetic field, when it gets near that reversal time frame, and there will be a short period of time of maybe a year or so when it does, where there won't really be a North Pole or a South Pole magnetically.
Yeah, right.
That will be bad for our technology.
Yeah. And it'll allow this kind of thing to happen quite often. So even though we are in the middle of a solar cycle of the highest activity right now, we're at the peak right now, and it'll start dipping off more a little like later, like next year is where it'll drop off pretty big. However, that's also when our magnetic field is going to be a little weaker. So we may see this several more times over the next year. So we'll see.
Wild.
Yeah.
It's crazy.
But I asked that original question, have you seen an increased activity? Because that is dumping a lot more energy
into the atmosphere,
into the Earth and into the magnetosphere and everything else coming directly from the sun. So I was just curious if that had any kind of effect.
Yeah. Like I said, it has been so overcast, like looking to the skies has been difficult. It hasn't a lot lately. And because of all the rain we've had, for all of you that kind of watches some of our shows, you know that our area for the last 2 years has been in a severe drought, so badly that we have been on water restrictions for over a year. And suddenly we were just inundated with rains, which, don't get me wrong, I have no problem with. You're going to have to float me out of my house before I complain. But it is so overflooded. Our river has topped its banks a number of times. People just have not been out to see things and to report things to us. Just because every time you seem to get like a free weekend, it storms. It storms like crazy. And I'm talking about hail and tornadoes. We've had so much tornadic activity. In fact, Bartlesville, just to the south of us, got hit by a tornado for the first time in I don't know how long.
Yeah.
Long time.
Very close to us. Yeah. Took a lot of damage. So
yeah, they're just 20 miles south of us. And
people
and
just have
south
not been
of
out.
Them is probably anyone that would be watching us anywhere in the United States heard about the Barnsdall. They had an EF4 hit them, and it pretty much wiped their little town out. So hopefully they can recover from that. But that's the tornado that moved on up into Bartlesville. And that was scary. That was a scary night.
Yeah. All my friends that live overseas are constantly, when they'll see that on the news, they're like, first, are you okay? It's like, oh yeah, that was very far away from me. And second, why do you still live there?
I've heard that. Yeah,
For sure.
I have heard that.
It's the beast, you know, apparently.
Yeah. Every place you live has some kind of a natural disaster that always attacks.
Earthquakes.
So
I wouldn't move away. All the cool people live here.
That's right.
That's right. It's very true.
Well, except for one, and we're working on that.
You look, let's flip around here. Yes, yeah.
Move away.
But he's within the 37th, so he's still kind of cool.
Yeah.
Yep. Still kind of cool.
I did pull this up just to show everybody where Caney is. That's where the majority of us are located, on the 37th. And we are just, 200 feet from the Oklahoma line. And the 37th is on the Kansas-Oklahoma line. So that's how close we are.
Yeah.
That was kind of cool.
Speaking of that, we should all tell at least like one UFO story or something, a personal one. Just people can get a general idea. Like everyone around here has experiences. This really is like a highway. They come from the east or the west and they just fly right over the top all the time.
They do. I'm glad you brought that up because I can switch over. One of our friends a few months ago, he leaves for work really early in the morning. It's like 3:30, 4 o'clock in the morning. And he heads towards Coffeyville, which is directly east of Caney. And he was seeing these lights. Well, he finally told his wife, hey, you're going to think I'm crazy. And she's like, I already think you're crazy. And he was like, okay, well, I'm seeing these lights. And she was like, have you recorded them? And he was like, well, no. And she's like, well, record them because Pam would love to see those. And so he did. He went out and he recorded and he brought them into the library. And I have one here. I want to show you guys. Let me pull it up here. Hang on. Do this first. Let me try it again. There we go. And he did a really good job because you can see the light pole he got in. And you'll start seeing these little lights blipping in and out. And they don't go in a straight direction. And I haven't edited this at all. So this is the raw that he gave me.
Yeah. Now, this is the kind of activity that we're getting in this general area. It's a huge swath from about just to the west of the Independence, Kansas area in a half moon radius towards the Coffeyville area. It's these very strange lights that just dance all night long. It starts occurring about after 2 sometimes. It happens earlier sometimes, but mainly focused after like the 2 a.m. to 3 to 4 a.m. time. These lights will pop in, they will dance around each other, they'll shoot off, they'll disappear, they'll split into 2, 3, 4, 5 different ones and then rejoin later. It's just amazing. And originally when we first started getting reports of this, it was just over towards the Independence area. Now, Independence, Kansas has a small little airport to it just for small plane traffic. And I assumed that maybe it was water birds or something over the landing strip area. It's lit from underneath, so you would think those white birds would pick up the different colored lights maybe reflecting off of them. And birds tend to dip and move and do fun stuff in the air. Until I got to see a little bit of it myself. These were not birds, whatever was doing this. And I also noticed that they left that area. You could watch the lights move away from the landing strip area far enough away that no light should be able to reflect off of them. So
Mhm.
Now, did you get the impression that this was something that light was reflecting off of, or was it generating its own light, like it had a light bulb in it, kind of a thing?
I believe the couple that I saw with my own eyes, and then the ones I viewed, that people have sent us, I believe they are giving off their own light. There's a couple of videos that I viewed where the light color changed,
Mhm.
where it went from a white to a pink to a blue. And I would watch them split, and one would be one color and one would be the other, and they'd go off in different directions and then meet back up later and join back together again, and they'd become a third color.
That's interesting.
It would like blink out and leave the sky, and then you'd see it pop up somewhere else in the sky, and it would do the same thing. They don't act like animals. Any type of birds I've ever seen can accomplish this.
Yeah.
And like I said, I watched them fly away from the airport area, or move away, I should say, from the airport area, and kept a steady light. So I can't imagine that it was reflections from
Yeah.
the lights from the landing
And like
strip.
the ones that we're seeing there, they you can tell they're not aircraft because they're doing the whole moving in and out, and then they're really bright and then they fade away and then something pops up down below, and but I told him he did an excellent job because he was able to get us a reference, that light pole's there, so it helps us to reference the not only the distance but the actual size. So he did
Right.
a great job.
Yeah. A little that's good for like people at home, like a little like photographing or videoing 101. Camera videos aren't great, but if it's all you have, use it to your advantage. So open up the camera full wide so you can pinpoint your what you're looking at around you. Like find something like a light pole or a building in the distance, or something you can focus on, so people can get a general idea of how far away, where
Mhm.
it's sitting in the sky. And please do zoom in on it occasionally so you can kind of get an up close and personal, but always do that pull back out and get that steady shot so you can see the way it's acting, where it's at. We can get a general idea of maybe how large it is.
Yeah.
A lot of people, they see it and they turn their cameras on and they zoom right into it, and then that's all you ever
Yeah.
see.
And they're chasing
And
it. It's,
Yeah.
Yeah. And it's so far away that it's shaky, because no matter how still you think you're being, it's going to be shaky when you're zoomed in that far. So
Oh,
you
yeah.
literally see this like,
right.
and you're like, what is it I'm looking at?
And we've
Um,
mentioned this before, but these things are kind of designed for selfies and cat videos,
Yeah.
and it's got this
Daylight.
teeny tiny lens on there that's trying to see a pinpoint of light that's moving on a black sky. It really just was not designed for that. And when you're chasing it around, but definitely that's what I tell people, the same thing, like you just said. Start up with the wide angle, try and have something in there for perspective, know what direction it is,
Yeah.
and where you're standing in relation to all of that stuff, because that'll help to figure out kind of the general direction it is. Because
mhm.
there might be someone out there that's in Independence and saw it,
Yeah.
and
Seeing
it
the same
has
thing.
a different angle. So
Yeah.
that way you could actually triangulate to figure out exactly how high it was and where exactly it was, things like that. So there's
What's interesting about that too is he's not the only one that's seeing that. We have the other person that's seeing it up closer to Independence. Mark's son has seen the same thing pretty much
Just
in
between here and
relatively the same
Tyler. Yeah.
area.
Yeah.
Yeah, on
Mhm.
his way to Coffeyville. So,
Yeah.
and then Jennifer,
Yeah.
I popped this up. She had given me this report. I want to say it was close to a year ago, probably, that she had seen something during the day just south of Copan.
Yeah.
Yeah. There's a lot of sightings out there.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. I've had my 3 sightings, which are insane. And I was going to say one of our people who have been sighting that area that we were talking about there, she got, I told her, I was like, you're getting in too deep, chick. You need to back out a little bit. You're going to John Keel yourself.
Let's
She
see.
was she was a late nighter. She would hit the gym late at night when no one was there, and then drive home in the middle of the night. And she was literally starting to record them nightly, and it was getting a little crazy. And one night, she apparently decided that she was going to see if she could get it to notice her. So she signaled it with a flashlight and literally was thinking to it, like, I'm over here. And apparently it was a bad mistake because the thing came at her. It made it almost over the top of her. She filmed it come up almost over the top of her before it zoomed off in another direction. Scared her very badly. She went inside her
What does
house
she
and did
think
not
was
come
gonna
back
happen
out.
with the signal? Yeah.
Well, I think she was probably trying to prove to herself that maybe it wasn't what she thought. So,
But it was.
but it was.
But it was.
We've
But it
got a
was.
long weekend, and I am off. Maybe we should go out there and try to film.
We could.
If
It's supposed to be storming. It's supposed to be storming this week.
Oh, well, of course it is. When I've got time to go out there and do it. A lot of your digital DSLRs have very good low light settings, and they have a very large lens set up. They are really good for this sort of thing. So if you're going to go out and intentionally trying to get video, take something that is really got the ability to get a good picture. GoPros are okay. They're not really great at low light. They're good at low light photos. So, I mean, there's a lot of things that you can use, but the digital DSLRs, they're pretty good for that.
The general rule of thumb is, I said the example earlier, it's got this tiny little lens. The larger the lens, the more light it's allowing in and allowing it to focus and have a more clear, more detailed picture. So if you're looking specifically for a camera to go outside and take pictures of weird stuff at night, get something that is much better than this. Anything is almost better than this, but everyone has one of these, so that's what everyone uses. So I get it.
Well, I know you can buy lenses that will attach onto your phones. I haven't tried them, but I know
you can get them on Temu.
Pretty good luck with them on Temu.
I'm looking at one now. It's basically a big spotter scope with a deal to hold your phone, so you can.
Oh yeah, they make those. Yep.
Okay, before we run out of time, I did want to bring up, there's one thing that I ran across that I thought was really interesting. I'm going to pull this back up so we can see the graphic that goes along with this. Something that showed up when I was doing some research off the 37th parallel. There are more cases of multiple sclerosis that occur above the 37th parallel.
About
as
double.
Opposed to below. Yeah. It's one of those really strange things. They don't know what causes multiple sclerosis, and for those that don't know, it can be a debilitating disease, and it attacks your brain and your spinal cord, and it's an immune system attack basically, and it tears the protective sheath, the myelin sheath that covers the nerve fibers, and it causes communication problems between your brain and the rest of your body. So, eventually it can cause permanent damage or deterioration of your nerve fibers. So this is a really serious thing. They don't know what causes it. They know it's not always genetic. They know that it can run in families, but that can be for a multitude of reasons. One of those reasons could be the family lives in the same area. There is a thought that it may have to do with lower amounts of sunlight to the north of the line, because it does seem to have some relation to a lack of vitamin D in people, but not always. So they don't know. And another thing that popped up that was kind of odd is the economic impact. So in like 2010, homes below the 37th, which are in the southern part of the United States, which can be sometimes the more poor states, especially in the So, well, I guess it would be both areas. I was going to say everywhere but Texas sometimes, but I don't know. But they're more likely to be upside down in their mortgages, which I don't know. Does that have anything to do with, like you were saying earlier, Enzo? It's that not too hot, not too cold. It's just kind of just right through there.
Right.
You know, maybe that's what it is. It's just a differentiation between that north and south right there. But I thought that was interesting. I had never heard that before about MS.
I haven't either. That's
Strange.
wild.
Yeah.
The 37th parallel happens to also be the cutoff point, the border between North and South Korea.
Really?
Yeah.
You talk about a way too hot and
I mean,
extreme differences there.
ooh. That's
My goodness.
crazy.
Yeah.
Let's see. And then
lots of coincidences.
there is a lot of coincidences there. One thing we haven't really talked about yet that we might want to touch on a little bit is cattle mutilations along the 37th.
Oh,
So who wants to start on that one?
Blech.
I will talk about it. Cattle
Okay.
mutilations is weird. They happen in the night, sometimes during the day, but generally at night. The farmer will come out and they'll find a cow freshly dead, no blood on the ground, in the cow. A necropsy will show that the heart has been collapsed, which means the blood was pulled while it was still alive. So they bled it out, possibly by machine, possibly, by a critter, who knows. The same organs tend to be gone. In surgical circles, the eyes, ears, anal region,
On the mouth.
the reproductive organs, skin around the mouth. Usually the tongue is removed very precisely in precisely the same spot. Sometimes there are an excessive radiation, not high radiation, but measurable radiation. And they sometimes find the little nodules that they find around the crop circles in the soil.
Yeah, the little iron ores.
So they're really weird, and they're almost all identical. The animal's always found laying the same way. If there's multiples done the same day, they're laying on the same side. They have the same things removed. The weird thing is there's often an uptick in UFO sightings. Often black helicopters are seen in the area afterwards. And they tend to happen in clusters near nuclear sites and clusters along the 37th parallel. So it's a really weird subject.
Another interesting point, more often than not, the insects will not eat them afterwards.
Or the carrion eater.
Scavengers.
Yeah,
Carrion
you
eaters
won't
touch 'em.
find flies and stuff on them. They just mummify out there unless they're removed.
This particular picture that I pulled up, it's from Colorado. It's from the Miller Ranch in Colorado. From this one's from 2020, so it's still happening. And at their particular ranch, they have been having this issue that they started documenting since 1995. And since that time, they've had 16 mutilations occur on their property. And these are lifelong ranchers. They know what a normal death looks like.
They know what
this.
coyote
I mean,
attack.
I'm not a
or wolf
rancher, and
attack
I'm
looks
looking
like.
at this thinking that doesn't look normal. And this same cow, they flipped it over. This is what the opposite side looks like. It's very weird looking. It's very flat.
I mean, but it's weird how it's just all hollowed out.
Yeah, it's just a shell. That's all that's left of it. And there's no blood.
Yeah.
And around the mouth it was all peeled back, and that's a very common thing is for the
around
Almost
the
the
teeth.
lips, basically, to all be gone to where the teeth are showing.
It's almost like they're trying to examine the teeth.
Mhm.
Something. I don't know what they're doing. But yeah, it's just weird.
When it comes, because I've heard that before. They're doing biological sampling and things like that. It's like after all that, because this has gone on for a very long time.
Yes.
I
Yes.
don't know what the earliest reports are of this kind of stuff, but I'm guessing 50s and 60s, anyways,
Yeah.
if not a little before. But why? I mean, assuming it's even if it's different types of aliens that want to check out the
Yeah.
livestock and do some kind of biological survey that takes chunks out of it and leaves, along with all of its blood. Why would they have to keep doing it year after year after year? And all what's going on? Are they doing comparisons from earlier samples, checking something in the environment to see if something's changed?
Maybe they just like weird things on the supper table.
Yeah, it doesn't make sense.
Isn't it
Yeah,
common for
I
like
have no idea.
one of the ears to be gone as well?
Yeah, and
Yep.
not for two. And a lot of them just have one eye missing, not both eyes.
Yeah.
In a perfectly surgical incision.
Yeah.
And Rick said, could it be what they need to survive? I don't, maybe. That's as
Maybe.
good a guess as any at this point.
Makes
Really.
sense.
Okay.
Like earlier backstage before we came on, we were discussing so you have the cattle mutilations, but you also have the dropped cattle.
Yes.
The cattle
That's
that
what
were
this one.
purposely dropped.
Yeah, that's what
Um,
they talked about on this one. It looked like it had been dropped from a high distance and just
Mhm.
smacked on the
Well,
head.
some of these are not dissected. They're literally cattle that have been picked up and moved up to a very high area and simply dropped. And I had seen where many in the Uinta Basin, Utah, and all of that area up there, they have issues with ones that are not just dropped, but they're literally thrown back to the ground and thrown so hard that they just become a jelly.
Ugh.
Like they've impacted so hard that they leave an impact crater underneath of them and they're just turned to mush. They've hit so hard.
That's crazy.
Why?
Why?
Yeah. What could possibly be the reason? Are they, playing catch like football? What are they doing? And you've seen
Is it
them
like
too,
pumpkin
where
chucking with cows?
sometimes the cows are like caught, not in the, well, I haven't seen it in the top of a tree, but I've seen them
Hmm.
hung up on like light poles, electric poles and
Yeah.
stuff. How did they get up there, and to
Yeah.
be surgically, have these laser marks on them too, and they're that up high. What the heck?
Yeah.
I'm
It's
going to switch
crazy.
over to this real quick. This is one we were talking a little bit backstage about that we ran across. This is Snippy the horse.
This is the
And
one that really brought it to everybody's attention.
it did.
Yeah.
This took place September 7th, 1967. So it was in the 60s. This horse she was an Appaloosa named lady. When they went to feed her that night, she didn't show up. She never not shows up because she always wants her food and she always wants a treat. And so they went looking for her and they found her lying on her side with her head stripped bare to the bone. And he said that precision cuts on the flank could not have come from a coyote or even a pack of them. And there was a strong chemical smell akin to like acetone that was in the air. So, they walked around the scene, the husband and wife. And, the bones, they appeared to have been exposed to the air. They looked like they had been there forever out in the sun for a while, but they were still kind of pinkish. So it was obviously really fresh, plus the fact that it hadn't been that long since they'd seen the horse either. It wasn't bloated, it didn't smell of decomp, but no predators, no buzzards, no vultures or anything found it appealing. They were staying away from it. And even though its head was stripped, the flesh on its neck was still pliable. So there's absolutely no reason some kind of predator would not have come up and
Yeah.
chewed on it,
Mhm.
The horse's hoof prints, they ended about 100 feet from where the remains were laying. There were no other prints in the area. And they found 15 burns that could be circular exhaust marks. 100 yards north of the carcass, they found a 3-foot bush and bushes within a 10-foot radius of that bush that had been flattened within like 10 inches of the ground. and there were 6 indentations, 2 inches across and 6 inches deep, that formed a circle about 3 foot in diameter. So it wasn't huge, but the interesting thing, on the bushes, the wife found some gelatin-like green globs and a piece of metal covered with horsehair. And after touching these, her hands started to burn and hurt until she could get them washed off. So they reported this to the sheriff, and he declared that the horse had been killed by lightning, even though there were weather reports, there was no storms or anything in the area. So a National Forest Service employee, he came out with a Geiger counter and he started testing the area. And the area around the burn marks was radioactive, and so were the green globs, as well as the horsehair wrapped metal object. I thought that was fascinating because, Go ahead.
Oh, I was just going to say, it's just good to note that it's not just cattle that get attacked. All different kinds of livestock are being mutilated. It's just the cattle that we hear about more often than most, because they're the ones that are worth the most money. These ranchers lose these cattle, they're losing their livelihood.
Yeah.
Right.
To whatever this is. In fact, there's a case out of Nevada that I followed for a little while that happened just in the early 2000s. It was a sheep farm, and they were having problems with their sheep getting wiped out. These sheep were not being mutilated. They were getting mutilated, but not like the cattle were. These were literally being turned inside out. They were finding them inside out. Their wool was in the inside, and everything else was on the outside, as if somebody'd come along and just reached through and pulled them.
What in the heck would cause that? That's freaky.
Nothing that I want to mess with.
Ooh.
Yeah.
New guy on the teleporter. Yeah.
Yeah.
On this particular horse, they did call in a guy that was a medical expert. And when he examined the horse, he found that its lungs, its heart, and its thyroid were completely missing. And the brain and the abdominal organs were all gone as well. But what was really, really interesting to me was there was no material left in the spinal column. Where did that go? How did that get out? It's just fascinating.
It's weird. The details are just bizarre.
Mm-hmm. And he did say the outer edges. Now, when this medical examiner was an older man, he talked about it again and told a reporter, he'd done hundreds of autopsies. And, he said, you can't cut into a body without getting a little bit of blood somewhere. And there was no blood on this at all, on the skin, on the ground, anywhere. And the outer edges of the skin were cut firm, almost as if they had been cauterized by a modern day laser. But there was no cauterizing laser technology like that in 1967.
Right. And that's another interesting detail. Everybody describes the cuts as being laser precise, but no sign of cauterization.
Mm-hmm.
So for it to be that precise and not be or not cauterize it, was it some kind of force beam technology? I don't know.
It's weird.
Water cutter, maybe? I don't know.
It's strange. Probably technology that we just don't know about.
Right. I mean, that's bizarre.
Mm-hmm.
And usually, especially like during the 70s, when this was really taken off, like the local sheriff or whoever came, or game warden or whoever came out to investigate it, would be like that. They would sit on it for like a couple of weeks and then be like, oh, it must have been some type of devil worshippers doing something.
That was big. That was big. It's cult activity.
It's like, how maybe a couple of dorks came out here in the middle of the night. Nobody saw their flashlights. Nobody heard a car come up.
There's never footprints, even when there's snow.
No, like in this particular horse, there weren't prints within 100 yards of him. Even the horse prints, there were no horse prints within 100 yards of where they found the body.
So, it's
so
just
he was,
weird.
Moved to where he was somehow.
That's crazy.
It's pretty wild
and scary. If they can do that to animals, they can certainly do that to us. So, or whatever it is, it could happen to us.
We're getting
2 words.
the
Missing
end.
411.
What do you think? Are you
Yep.
guys ready for a round of notebooks?
Let's do
New notebook
notebooks.
game.
Woohoo!
All right. Okay. Make sure I have 5. 1, 2, 3,
So
4,
anybody
5.
in the audience, if you want to
Here
start,
we go.
she has 5 notebooks. So
Look at
choose
that.
number 1 through 5, and then a page
Yep.
number 65 or lower.
Yep.
You want to get us
And
started,
since-
Enzo, while we're waiting?
Yeah.
Book 2, page
Okay.
18.
18. Ooh, keeping it simple on me.
I'm excited. I'm always excited when it's notebook time.
Mm.
Let's see what kind of weirdness is floating around in my notebooks.
Makes me sad I don't keep notebooks. It wouldn't be near as fun to do a round of G Drive games. You
Yeah.
know?
That sounds a bit
Loses
weird.
the appeal.
Yeah, I personally try and stay away from
Okay.
snooping around on anyone's personal drive. That's
Just in case.
Okay, so interesting.
What's on your
This is
drive?
perfect for Enzo because this is part of my Kentucky lore
Ooh.
section. Right? So this is on the Shawnee, the DNA studies that they were doing on the Shawnee, that suggested that the ancestry of the Pic Shawnee may extend even further back in time. One of the 5 mitochondria DNA haplographs found among all Native Americans, blah, 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 I won't list them, have been found in high frequency among living Shawnee and woodland populations that date between 500 BC and AD 500. So they're an old group. And then it goes into the rock art of Kentucky. And all the Cherokee myths and lore and all of that.
Very cool.
That was like just my beginning notes on it. I could read those out for you, but we'd have to be here for about another hour.
Yeah, I don't want to.
Yeah. Yep.
It's actually pretty cool though. I'm getting more and more interested in Native American, like a lot of their older, like origin stories and things like that, because that's kind of the only early record we have for this country. Before Europeans showed up.
Yeah. Before they showed up and messed up everything.
Well,
Yeah.
before the
we showed up.
Smithsonian started hiding everything.
Yeah, before those evil Smithsonians started hiding.
We went on our Smithsonian rant when we were doing all the lost history
We
stuff.
did. We
We
went on a
did.
right rant.
I
We'd have
mean-
all this cool stuff if it wasn't for you dang Smithsonian.
Well,
Dang
and it was
Smithsonian.
actually racist because the
Dang.
policy, and it remains the policy, is no, they didn't want to show the native population as having any kind of significant history or accomplishments before European settlers. So it's bizarre that they're still doing it today. Whereas almost like they're doubling down. Oh, we don't want to admit that we had bad policies, so we're just going to double down.
Yep. All right. Notebook 4, page 13 is on the mythologies of tulpas.
Ooh, that's good.
That's a good one.
Yeah. So on this page, I have core theory. If humans thought something into being, we can think it out of being, in a basic way of saying it without using too big of words. Another theory that us 3 had been discussing, me and Mark and Pam, were that ghost may be tulpas, created knowingly or unknowingly by ourselves. Our residual spirits tulpas, non-sentient, our aliens tulpas, our doppelgangers tulpas. And it's like literally these are just notes to myself. I'm sitting here figuring stuff out and making little passages to myself to look up later. I'm also, this is probably pretty boring for most people. I'm also talking about added wave functions that overlap. The probability of distribution is amplified into a more definite certain, and that's going back into like parallel. It's my weird head.
It's weird stuff.
Yeah.
That's fun.
Like,
All right, I'm throwing
all
mine out there.
Copenhagen model and all that, blah, 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 blah. Okay. Well, I
Notebooks,
don't have a notebook
me
6.
too.
Do you want me
Oh,
to do the
no.
fifth one?
Yeah, let's
Notebook
go with the
5?
fifth one.
Okay.
I was just feeling
Page
very
40.
Douglas Adams.
That's it. You don't have that notebook yet.
Yes, yes.
I know what one I'm going to do. I'm throwing it out there before anybody else can get it.
Yay.
Okay. This is a personal time slip story from some kids down in Oklahoma City, Oklahoma.
Ooh.
Oh, that's cool.
So I'll just read it. It's a short one. It's a little half-page thing. So this contributor is Mitch Moore from the Oklahoma City, Oklahoma area. This was given in November 2011. It says, I was driving a group of friends home from an away high school football game we all went to. I believe it was November 2011. We were on I-35 headed south, listening to music and having a conversation. I remember just south of OKC, I looked at my radio to turn down the music, and when I looked back up, we all looked around and said, where are we? Somehow, we were heading east on I-240. The same song was playing from my radio, and no time had seemed to have passed as our conversation was ongoing. None of us remember how we got there, and I couldn't have taken an off ramp because I had my cruise control set on 70. To this day, it still freaks me out to think about it. There were 5 of us in the car, and not a single one of us know how we got there. No bright lights, missing time, or anything else. We blinked and we were just somewhere else.
That's freaky.
That is weird.
That was
Yeah.
2011, you said?
Yes. Now I followed up on this story because I found the story like on a chat room or something like that, and I followed back to it, and they said I got some added story to this one. I got my little notes down here. So in accordance to where the kids were on the highway they were supposed to be on to where they ended up, it was an hour away. They were lost. They didn't know how to get back home from where they were because they weren't even quite sure where they were. And they ended up phoning and getting one of their parents, and the parents had to come and get them and lead them back. And they were accused for a while. They assumed that they had gone out joyriding and got themselves lost and hadn't gone to the game like they were supposed to. So they were actually in trouble for quite a while until, and I don't know what arose, but finally, I think some of the parents finally believed them. And yeah.
You can usually tell when your kid's lying, especially
Oh,
Yeah.
you
when
can.
a length of time goes away
Yeah.
from the situation. You can trip them up a little bit, but
Yeah.
oh man, that's
Yeah. So that's one of those weird stories that I have.
that was a good one, Mark.
All right. What do we got?
Notebook 3, page 7.
Okay.
7.
Page 7. So this shouldn't be hard. Okay. Oh, this one's on Bigfoot sightings in Missouri.
Ooh, fun.
That pertains.
Right.
It does.
So just to give you a general idea, let me count out here. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15, 16, 17, 18, 19, 20, 21, 22, 23, 24, 25, 26, 27, 28, 29, 30, 31, 32, 33. This page has 34 sightings alone on it.
Wow.
I'm not counting the other pages of just Missouri ones. This page here spans from, what's the earliest date? 1932 is the earliest date on this one. And the latest date it looks like is 2018.
Wow.
So
There you
just,
go.
I have one out of Joplin on here.
Uh-huh.
That's pretty close to us. God, they're from all over.
You know, there.
Just,
Anytime we talk about Bigfoot in the Joplin area, it always makes me think of the story of the police officer that was called out because they found footprints in the snow in Chitopa, Kansas. And he
Mhm.
followed them, physically followed these footprints that were like, I can't remember how big they were, but they were Bigfoot prints, obviously way bigger than a man's. He followed them clear into Joplin. That's a long ways. That is a long hike, especially in the snow barefoot.
mhm. That's a long
That's
way.
that one always impressed me. So, does anybody else want to play the notebook game before we call it a night? If you do,
Nope,
throw it
I'm
in
good.
the chat, and we will do so.
Ooh.
All right.
Look at us. It's only 9:01.
It is only
Ooh.
9:01.
Oh, we got
Oh,
Shocking.
we have one more. We have one more.
Oh,
Okay.
book one, page one. All right.
Chris got it right in there. Yay.
Let me get all my junk out of the front, out of the way, so it doesn't slide off. Oh, this is the Bigfoot interview with John Randall.
Oh, how cool.
Yeah. All right. So I'll read it because it's one page.
That's awesome.
All right. So this interview was done with John Randall in February 2nd, 2014 was when this was taken. This particular thing happened when he was 14. It was 1987. Good to note, this is part of that huge flap that we had right after the huge flood of 86. We have so many accounts from that time period in this little teeny tiny area just outside of Caney, literally just outside of Caney.
In fact, John had his sighting, what we just figured out in 2014. He had it maybe 2 months after I saw that thing in 1987, just within a couple hundred yards of where I saw it.
Yeah. So it says, and this is his own personal retelling. He actually kind of wrote it out for me. So if it's a little janky in parts, this just is how it's written. So it says, I was 14 years old, so it would have been 1987, around the summer to fall time. Me, my sister, and her boyfriend at the time drove down to Monster Bridge, the original one, in his little car after dark. We stayed out there drinking and spray painting the bridge up a bit for about an hour or so. When we decided to pack up and go, we all got back in the car. He turned it on, and we saw this thing standing about 30 to 40 feet ahead of us, right on the edge of the car headlights. It looked to be about 6 feet tall. Shaggy, rusty, brownish red fur, kind of clumpy looking, and had reddish eyes. It was standing to the right side of the road with its right side to us, and its head turned, looking straight at us. We stayed there for a little bit discussing what it was we were looking at, which I have no idea how they did that. I've been like, I'm getting the heck out of here.
Oh yeah, I'd be gone.
For sure.
Yeah.
Paint fumes. Blame it on the paint
Yeah.
fumes.
I told my sister it was a Bigfoot, but she refused to believe it and said it must be something else. Then my sister's boyfriend let his foot off the brakes for a quick moment, and the car moved forward just an inch. The movement registered with this creature, and it quickly hunched down and turned to its left at the same time, and then leaped about 8 feet away, and then bounded off into the woods at a high speed. Now, interesting to note, these stories that we got coming in during this 1 year time period from 96 to 97, they were all jumpers.
Mm-hmm.
Yep.
They all would leap.
Middle of the road, and it just bent down and jumped straight over
Yeah.
and I didn't even know his story, for what, 30 some years.
Yeah.
Had never even
Right.
heard it. And he didn't, I mean, I knew John, but I never hung out with him, and I never, he was a lot younger than me, so I was never around him. And we didn't hang out with the same people. So I never heard his story. And I was thrilled when Jess got a hold of me, and she's like, guess what? There was somebody else that saw this. It's got to be within a couple of months with when you saw your thing.
Yep.
So yeah,
Right,
that was a good
okay,
one,
so
Chris. Yay.
yeah, I'm almost done. There's a little
Oh, sorry. I jumped the gun.
Yeah, so it says my sister's boyfriend slammed on the gas and we got out of there. To this day, my sister still refuses to say that we saw anything. Like she blocked it out or doesn't want to admit it. Not long after the incident, I realized that there were very deep ditches on each side of that road, and they're like drainage ditches.
Yeah.
Around 3 to 4 feet deep, which would have made that creature not 6 foot, but probably around 9 feet tall. So that was his story. He, like he gives me the permission to be able to tell the story down below. But yeah, that's one of the many stories we have from that little tiny area right after that 86 flood.
Yep. So that might be something. I mean, we've had some floods here recently, not as bad as 86, but we may see an uptick again. Who knows?
Yeah, maybe.
We might. Well, and
all right. So are we all done? Are we ready to
I think we're
end
good.
this?
We are to the
All
end.
right. Okay, so I'm gonna do the ender here. Everybody stick with us for like 1 more minute. Let's get through this last little bit here. So thanks everybody for hanging out with us tonight in the chats. And a big thank you to Enzo and to Mark for hanging out with us tonight. You will probably be seeing them a lot because we kind of like them.
Every time we can get them on here, we will.
Yeah.
Anytime. Just consider me here.
Yay.
Awesome.
When I am here, of course, I have the same fun.
Right.
Yeah.
Yay. Remember to like, share, and subscribe and hit that bell and find us on all the social media. You can find a listing of our show notes, resources, and references on our website, www.bordertownparanormal.com under the Bordertown Strange button. I can't talk at the top. Catch a new show every other Wednesday night at 7 p.m. Central on YouTube, Facebook, and we are also available wherever you listen to your podcast. Check us out there if you want to listen to us in the car instead of watching us live. Our next one will be June 5th, and we'll be releasing what that topic is soon online, so watch out for that. Remember to send in your show ideas and your personal stories and your videos. We'll read them or have you on the show or what have you. It'll be fun. So everybody keep it weird, keep it strange, and remember it's all connected.
Woo-hoo.
Good night.
Night, everybody.
Good night.